Greetings, YouTube. Once again, happy July 4th weekend. You know, it is quite appropriate, quite apropos, if you will, that the number one question I've received in the past 24 hours, which, by the way, I have not been able to respond to Twitter direct messages. I have not been able to respond to most line messages. I plan to start working through those tonight, but I beg you to be patient. It has been so demoralizing to hear people complain because I haven't posted their video fast enough or haven't responded fast enough when I'm still trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with me. So please be kind and understanding and patient. I realize that something that makes my channel unique is that I'm so accessible, but I think that sometimes people can take that for granted, and if I don't respond in the time frame that they're used to, they either take it personally or they just complain to complain, and it makes me not want to do it anymore, and I want to continue to be accessible, but you know, appreciation and empathy are really important in life. I'm just saying. Okay, so with all that being said, we know that in the spectacular Summoner bundles, the grand prize was the 6-star generic Awakening Gem. Now, of course, you could also purchase the class-based if you're a Cavalier, but that is a different discussion for a different video. We should have known that the 6-star generic was the top prize if I had just not been in a hurry and had just stared at the banner, because you can see in the top right that it is most certainly the top item in the Cavalier promotion, I guess is the best way to put it. So, yeah, I know that so many people have the generic 6-star Awakening Gem without having to do the Abyss. I didn't think that I was going to get it because I didn't think I was going to explore the Abyss anytime soon, and yet there it is as well. So I view this question very, very importantly because there are so few 6 stars in the game that warrant or justify a generic. Now, I will say this as well. If there's just a champion that you love and you have him as a 6-star and you know you like to awaken him and you've got 6 stones, who cares what my advice is, right? I'm giving you some general advice, take it or leave it. But at the same time, what you don't want to do is say use your generic on Aegon. We'll talk about Aegon here in a moment. But then you don't have any 6 stones, so then you just took him to like Sig 10. You know, a champion like Aegon, a puzzle piece champion as I call them, really needs to be pushed to at least half of max Sig if possible, which is Sig 100. Without further ado, we're going to go through each class, and I'm going to talk about a couple of things to point out. Also, huge shout out in this video to my man Triumphant, who he and I stayed up last night texting back and forth our thoughts on this very video, and a lot of his recommendations made it into this video. So, first things first when it comes to the science class. This guy, Captain America Infinity War, really deserves a generic. And I have a generic, but I'm holding off for a top preference besides him. And part of it is I do think if I awakened him, I'd want to take him to Sig 200, but I'm saving my 6 stones for Omega Red because I use Omega Red way more than I use Captain America Infinity War. And so that's a personal preference, but he definitely deserves it. Now, some people might ask, do the dad bod or does Void? By the way, people have missed yesterday's video, and so they're like, you got the dad bod? 18,000 units for the dad bod. Check it out. It's controversial. A lot of people hate it. But hey, rules are rules. I stuck to my guns. So I've had people tell me, well, you know, as far as science champs, I still would use a generic on who I just named. But I really think they've got to be justified big time. And that's why I can't say even the likes of like Immortal Abomination. The champion I never would have guessed, but Triumphant said if you're skilled with him, he would definitely use a generic on him, is Thing. So as far as science champions are concerned, really, I put it at Captain America Infinity War and Thing. And that's it. I know that's a small list, but again, the point is to be as patient as possible with this incredibly rare resource. Now, skill, I just talked about Aegon, but the opposite of Aegon when it comes to skill is Nick Fury, because Nick Fury becomes the quote-unquote real Nick Fury at Sig 1, right? How significant. I also want to point out that this discussion does not include the assumption that you're mainly going to awaken and put 6 stones into a 6-star for prestige purposes. I am not a big prestige chaser. I would never want to be in an alliance that I hear so many horror stories of, like, the leader contacts them and says, I know you love this champion, but if you want to stay in our alliance, you have to awaken and put your 6 stones into this champion to raise our prestige. Like, that would drive me crazy. Talk about micromanagement. And I get if you're in the top of the top, that prestige could make the difference between whether or not you get those top rewards and whether or not you miss out. But life is too short to be in a situation like that. So that's just not for me, but it, it's for other people. But Aegon and Nick Fury are the two that I'm going to talk about from this class, and I really do want to preface by saying if you don't have 6 stones and you have a choice between the two, I'd choose Nick Fury every time because he only needs to be awakened at Sig 1. Okay, now we're going to the deepest class of any class in the game, and the mutant class is something that I have been reminded time and time again of why it's so good, but also there's some trash in it, and class-based Nexus crystals can remind us of that. Archangel, especially if you've got some 6 stones, is a no-brainer as a 6-star for a generic, and so is the aforementioned Omega Red. Now, besides that, if you're going to talk about prestige, I think Sunspot could make a case for himself, but at the same time, I put him at a tier lower than I do Archangel or Omega Red. So, just something to think about with that. Honorable mentions here. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't put Colossus or even Iceman in that category, but you might. But I'm sticking to just a small, specific amount of champs, given the rarity of this resource. All right. As far as this class is concerned, the Cosmic class, Corvus. I used to have people who told me you shouldn't put a generic into Corvus. I think that's crazy. It's crazy not to do that. I did that with my 5-star. And I didn't have a generic at the time of 6-star. I got very lucky and got a Cosmic Awakening Gem last year on July 4th. But Corvus is totally worth it. And I have to say, the number 1 champion that so many people were like, Prof, I can't believe you chose the dad bot over Cosmic Ghost Rider. I'll never get over it. I had a heart attack. I hate you. This guy deserves a generic as well. But even though I think he's the next champion I'm hunting for, rules are rules. I cannot say that enough. Now, if you want to talk about prestige, of course, we've got to mention the top prestige champ, Silver Surfer. I used to say Silver Lemon, and it would trigger a lot of people. So I don't say that anymore. But at the same time, I just got to say, this is a champion that I don't think justifies it, except for prestige. But again, you know how I feel about prestige. Moving on to tech. Ghost, 100% I think justifies generic. A lot of people use the same argument against Corvus as they do Ghost. She doesn't have to have it, but once she is awakened, especially with some 6 stones into her, she becomes a different champion, at least in my book. And believe it or not, Ghost is the only champion that I would put on this tech list. You have so many others, Guillotine 29, Warlock, Hulkbuster, who don't need to be awakened. You might say an honorable mention is like Guardian, but doesn't he need to be max sig? So would you really want to put all those 6 stones in him? I guess if he's your favorite champ, but not for most people. This is a really fascinating class to end on. I do think this is still by far the weakest class in the whole game, and it's been the weakest class for a long time. Part of that is because the best champion in the game used to be, especially pre-patch 12.0, Scarlet Witch, and she took forever to come out as a 5-star, and we may never see her as a 6-star. So, you're excluding the best champion traditionally before the newer Mystic champions from the higher rarity. But in general, this guy's the only guy that I think justifies the generic, and it's mainly for prestige. But just like so many others in this class, including my other MVP, Black Widow Clairvoyant, he does not need to be awakened. So for prestige, yes. Otherwise, no. So to recap, this is the short list. Ghost, Archangel, Omega Red, Aegon, Nick Fury, Captain America Infinity War, if skilled, Thing, but I'd put him at the bottom of this list, Corvus, and Cosmic Ghost Rider. That's it. Now I get because it's a short list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? 10 champs. There are going to be some people who argue that I've missed somebody, and I think that's what the comment section is for, to be honest. But at the same time, I'm going to give you my thoughts, and this is my list. Thank you so much, Gonna Triumphant, for helping me discuss this. And to everybody who clicked on this video, I appreciate your support, especially during this time of uncertainty, where I'm just taking it a day at a time, usually an hour at a time, while I'm still in Texas.